Hey everyone, it's Kayla here from Journey Dog Training, which is an online school dedicated to providing you guys with professional one-on-one behavior advice from anywhere in the world. I'm a member of the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, and I'm currently an associate certified dog behavior consultant. Hopefully in a couple weeks here I'm going to be fully certified, and that really sets me apart from the other online dog trainers that are out there. If you guys are interested in getting some more personalized support from me, you can check out journeydogtraining.com. And what I currently offer right now is either video one-on-one sessions, phone one-on-one sessions, which is basically the same thing as a private dog training lesson, except it's over video or phone, where I'm going to demonstrate with my dog, talk to you guys through the training plan, create a big long-term training plan with some short-term homework, and then go from there. I also provide for $20 a month a email support plan, which is really great for those long-term problems, such as introducing a dog to a cat. I've done resource guarding with that, and then worked with some separation anxiety and phobias. It's really great for you guys because basically you don't pay much, and you can just shoot me off an email with a question. I'll respond right away. You can say, okay, great, we did that. Now what's next? And we'll just keep going right from there. So it's really, really cool. You guys might enjoy it. And then down here, you guys can't quite see him right now, is Barley. Barley is my demonstration dog, and just remember that every time that one of you guys shares this video, Barley's going to get a piece of chicken in your honor. I did not do Training Tuesday last week, so we don't have anyone to honor with a piece of chicken today, but just keep that in mind, that if you would like Barley to get a piece of chicken, you can share this, and that'll help him out. So before we get started, I would love to have everyone comment below with your dog's name and what his favorite treat is. That helps me get to know you guys a little bit. I'm super interested in you guys and your dogs, and lets me know kind of what's going on in your life. And I want you guys to know that this is an interactive class, so whether you guys are watching live or after the fact, you guys can comment below, and I'm always checking for comments, and I will go ahead and respond, give you guys feedback, either in real time or after the fact. And if you guys really want help, go ahead and email me at kayla@journeydogtraining.com. That's Kayla @journeydogtraining.com. And I can answer you guys there. That might be faster, kind of depending on what's up. So today we are going to learn about teaching our dogs to be calm, cool, and collected, which is kind of our 3 C's of pretty much everything we do here at Journey Dog Training, out and about in public places. So I'm calling this coffee shop training, but really this applies if you want to be able to bring your dog to work, if you want to bring your dog to the bar, and really just if you would like to be able to have a dog that you can take out downtown, especially when you're talking about somewhere where you're going to be sitting and relaxing for a while. So this isn't so much about loose leash walking or distraction training as it is teaching your dog to really relax in a highly distracting city environment. So that's really, really tough for you guys, but it's actually one of the things that I am personally proudest about with my dog. So I'm really passionate about it, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it. It's one of my favorite things in the world to hear from someone after I've been at a coffee shop for a couple hours, like, oh wow, I didn't even know you had a dog there. And that's because I've done my training right. So I'm going to talk to you guys about how I did that. So for this video, what you guys are going to hear about is whether or not your dog actually wants to join you, how to know if your dog is ready to go as far as training, what you and your dog need to know before you go, my secret weapon for how I taught my dog to hang out for 4, 5, 6 hours at coffee shops, co-working spaces, all that good stuff, and my number 1 rule for bringing your dog out in public like this. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I like to think about here is whether or not your dog actually wants to join you. A lot of dogs actually are probably more comfortable staying at home rather than coming out to the coffee shop with you. So a lot of us really love bringing our dogs with us everywhere, and that's great. But some of our dogs just, they'd rather snooze at home on the couch or on their dog bed or sit in the sun than to come out to a coffee shop where there's a bunch of hubbub and bustle and people are stepping over them. And it's kind of a lot. So one of the big things I like to look at is whether or not your dog wants to go is your dog generally pretty relaxed around groups of people, especially when those people are unknown and in close quarters. So if you have guests over and your dog is like hyperactive with them, I actually would take that as kind of a bad sign. It doesn't mean that your dog can't go, and it doesn't mean your dog won't enjoy going, but it does mean you're going to have to do a lot more work. And sometimes that hyperactive greeting is actually something your dog does because he's a little nervous, and he's almost so nervous that he's overcompensating, which, you know, I mean, anyone who's been around little kids knows that sometimes the clingiest kids are actually the ones who are the most uncomfortable. So we want to look for that. We want your dog to be relatively relaxed with people kind of out and about in general before we try to ask your dog to lay and hang out for hours in public, right? So the other thing I want you guys to look for is, I guess basically, how do we know if your dog is comfortable? What I like to look for are what are called calming signals. So these are basically little bits of body language that let us know that our dog is a little bit uncomfortable. They're generally thought of kind of in one of two ways, and it's probably a little bit of both. Is either they're kind of self-soothing things that your dog does to calm himself down, or they are communicative, where your dog is letting other dogs, and now us, know that he's a little bit uncomfortable. So some examples of calming signals that you might see in people are people who twist their hair when they're nervous, which also could be boredom or vanity, but it's often nervousness. People who bite their nails, people who pick at their nails, people who don't make eye contact when they're nervous, people who chew on their lips. I used to have a nervous habit of just kind of squeezing my fingers. Actually, now that I say that, I totally still have this habit. So each dog will have some different ones, and all of those things are also potentially normal behaviors. So if I'm picking at my fingernails because I have a splinter, it's not because I'm nervous. The same goes for your dog with these calming signals. So if you see your dog yawning and he just woke up from a nap, it's probably not because he's nervous. It's probably because he just woke up from a nap. Or shaking off right after you take your harness off. Barley shakes off right after we put on and off his harness pretty much every time. So there are times where you're going to see these traditional calming signals where it's pretty normal. So let's talk about some common calming signals for your dog. For dogs, we see a lot of lip licking. This is Barley's number one. You'll see his tongue kind of flicking out, directly out from the tip of his mouth. You know, after I feed him a treat, he might do a big, hearty lip lick. That's because it was tasty. But when he's nervous, and if people go to pet over his head, almost every single time, you're going to see his tongue dart out. And that's a little bit of him just being like, whoa, I'm not sure about this. So licking and tongue flicking are really common. Yawning. Dogs will kind of yawn sometimes when there's a lot of tension. Shaking off as if they were wet, but they're not. Sniffing. Sometimes you'll see dogs, this is pretty common in dog parks when dogs are playing. They'll be playing, and then all of a sudden both of them break off and they start sniffing. It's probably not that all of a sudden that grass smelled like bacon. It's probably more that play was getting a little bit too intense for one or both of the dogs, and they're taking a break. Scratching is another one we see pretty often. And again, it's totally normal for your dog to scratch sometimes, but if it seems a little bit out of context, it might be a signal that your dog is a little bit nervous. So I want you guys to kind of keep all of that in mind as you go through this training. If you start seeing that, oh geez, when we started taking our dog on the road, we started noticing a lot of yawning, scratching, shaking off. Maybe your dog isn't actually enjoying it, which could mean one of two things. Either your dog might just be a dog who would rather stay at home, and that's fine, or you just need to do a lot of training. Or both, because the awesome thing is when you're doing treat training, you actually can help teach your dog that something is fun that used to be scary for them. So it's not that your dog can't go now, it's that your dog might not enjoy going yet, which means you just have to do a bit more training. Cool? So is your dog ready to go? One of the biggest things that we like to look at here is age. Of course, getting started with a younger puppy is going to be easier, but you need to be smart about where you're taking your unvaccinated puppy. Obviously, a lot of guide dog puppy raisers bring their puppies pretty much everywhere, but they're keeping a really close eye on basically where those puppies are. I am not a vet, so I can't really give medical advice about where and when a young puppy should go. But my understanding is that once a puppy is partway through his vaccination schedule, he's probably pretty much okay to go places that are not covered in dogs and dog scent and dog feces, essentially, because that's really what is super dangerous for unvaccinated puppies. So if you've got a young puppy and you would like to start getting going on this training right away, first off, kudos to you. I think this is a great thing to start training right away with a young puppy. And second off, generally, most bars, coffee shops, and co-working places are not going to be like cesspools of terrifying diseases. Your dog is pretty unlikely to catch parvo or distemper there because realistically, the other dogs that are also enjoying those spaces are, let's face it, relatively well cared for and probably vaccinated. So again, don't take my word for it. Talk to your vet. But in general, your little puppy is probably going to be okay. Just don't take her to the dog park. Petco, all those places, a little bit more likely to run into some diseases that you don't want to run into. And then, obviously, the biggest thing here, as far as whether or not your dog is ready to go, is training. And that can change and is what we're going to change today. But before we go, let's talk about the things that we want your dog to know and the things that your dog should really have down pat before you start taking your dog to coffee shops, bars, and work. My number one, really, is probably a leave it. That is just a safety issue. So I want your dog to be able to walk past a chicken bone and leave it when you ask. We can talk a little bit about leave it's in another Training Tuesday video. In the comments below, I think I have already done a Training Tuesday that talked a little bit about some leave it training, and I will link that below after this is posted. So leave it, just because it's a safety issue. And then the big thing here is I want your dog to be able to settle. And that is what we're going to talk about today. That is what we're really focusing on today. And this is not a downstay. We're going to talk about that in a second, the difference between settling and downstay. But basically, I want your dog to be pretty comfortable flopping over and staying that way for a while. And then we want to talk about polite greetings a little bit. So before you guys start taking your dog out, he needs to be able to leave it, he needs to be able to settle, and he needs to be able to greet people politely and appropriately. Ideally, if you're taking your dog out and about, your dog shouldn't be getting up to say hi to everyone anyway. If you're trying to enjoy coffee or a drink with friends or do some work or whatever, you don't want your dog getting up every single time someone walks by. So this is one of the reasons that I actually tend not to let Barley go meet people at all unless they ask first, and then usually I will go ahead and reward that good behavior in a stranger by letting them greet my dog. But as a general rule, I don't let him go say hi to people because I don't want him to have the expectation of going to say hi to everyone. So, polite greetings, basically, I would like my dog to ignore people. And we'll talk about that in a second here when we talk about that settle training. But you can start working on that in general, where at least I want your dog to stay with all four paws on the ground, nice, loose body postures, no over-exuberant greeting, because that, again, could be a sign of distress. Also, it's just kind of irritating if other people are trying to carry their martinis around and your dog is jumping on them. It's not super polite on your end. I wrote a little ebook on polite greetings. So if you guys go to journeydogtraining.com, go over to the blogs, and then go down to training games. If you go to the, there's a 13 dog training games, or my 13 favorite dog training games. It's 13 dog training games something. If you do that on my blog, you will see a place where you can put in your email address and then you will get sent the ebook. Full disclosure, I take your email address and then I send you kind of follow-up reminders about the training that's outlined in the ebook. So I am going to be sending you material from that email address. You can always unsubscribe, no hard feelings. It's a free ebook. Or you can keep it, and then it does do a pretty good job of reminding you guys about the training that you learned. And occasionally I'll send you some other things like, hey, I wrote a new ebook or whatever. You want to check it out. So if you guys would like to learn a little bit more about polite greetings, go on over to Journey Dog Training and you'll be able to find that under any of the games posts. So let's talk about my secret weapon for coffee shop training. And that is mat training. So Karen Overall's relaxation protocol is probably something you guys are so sick of me talking about. But I'm kidding. I'm not kidding you guys, It is like my favorite thing. I just got a message from a client today on my Journey Dog Training Facebook wall about how she's on day 6 and she's learned more with Karen Overall's relaxation protocol than she has ever in an obedience class, which is pretty mind-blowing. I wish I had come up with it, but I didn't. Karen Overall is amazing. I don't know what I would do without her. I've never met her, maybe one day. But mat training. So what is it? So Barley and I use this mat. It's just a bath towel that I picked up at the donation dock of the shelter I used to work for. Took it home for like $2 or whatever. I like this because this one in particular, because I can roll it up pretty small. It fits into my laptop bag. It's about the same size as my Nalgene pretty easily. And Barley and I no longer use it now, but this is how we got there. So basically, Karen Overall's relaxation protocol is a 15-day protocol that involves you guys going through all of these different steps and rewarding your dog at each step if your dog stays on the mat. So we'll do a demo of day 1 here on the video so you guys can see it. And then we'll do a demo of we'll do a demo of day 1 and day 15. Why not? We've got time. And so you guys can kind of see where it ends. And then basically what I recommend doing is after you've gone all the way through day 15 at home, I would take it on the road. And so what I would recommend doing is starting in a really nice boring area like your living room, and then taking the protocol again and going maybe your front yard, and then out and about more and more. I was planning on doing that today for you guys so you could see, I was thinking about taking them to a playground or something, but I've actually used all my data, so I can't stream if I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, so we are in the backyard of my Airbnb right now because I've used up all my data. So that's my secret weapon, it is almost literally just Karen Overall's relaxation protocol, which I went through at home, then I did at a co-working space, then I did at a park, and now, honestly, I don't carry the mat anymore. Barley just knows that when I sit down and I pull up my laptop, it's time to chill. So the other things that I do still do, and that I did add in a little bit, is if I notice that something else that wasn't included in the protocol was giving Barley a bit of trouble, I added it back in. I paid a bit more attention to it. And I continue to do that. So, for example, today, the coffee shop that I was working from was like literally a couple blocks from this teeny tiny airport that just had a bunch of little Cessnas taking on and off all day. When an airplane is coming into land, like a couple blocks from you, it gets really low and really loud. So and Barley was doing a great job, but he was kind of starting every time one of those planes went into land or take off. He was starting to look at it and his ears were kind of pinned and he was starting to look a little bit more worried and it was getting worse instead of better. So what I started doing is every time he looked up at one of those airplanes, I grabbed a treat because I always keep treats in my laptop bag and I gave him one. And we probably did that 50 times today. Because there was a lot of planes when we were there for multiple hours. Maybe 50 is an exaggeration. I don't know, 25, whatever. We did it a bunch, and it did help. And we are still doing that. I've had Barley now for almost 2 years, and we started mat training pretty much on day 1. So just so you guys know, this is not something where you're going to do this once for a couple weeks, and then you are done. I want you guys to keep treats in your bags with you, and you know what? Let's cut ahead to my number 1 rule of coffee shop training, bar training, workspace training, and that because it ties in really well here. My number 1 rule is that if your dog is struggling or causing a disturbance, you need to leave. So that means that when I first started out and I wasn't sure how Barley was going to be doing, I actually would go to coffee shops or bars and I would not bring friends. I would not plan on getting work done. I might bring my Kindle with an ebook or something and we would do some training and I would try to see how long we could push it. But if Barley, started getting nervous about something or started getting antsy, we left. And that is really, really important, you guys, because trying to stick it out when your dog is nervous is more likely than not to make your dog more nervous next time and less likely to enjoy it next time. Also, it kind of gives your dog a bad name, and it gives dogs of all sorts a bad name when you go out and about. So my number one rule for this out and about dog training is, especially at first, but really always, you need to be willing to leave if you bring your dog because your dog is either struggling or causing a disturbance. So that's not very fun, but it's just, you've got to be able to do it. And there have been times where I've had to get up and leave. There have also been times where I've been more forward than I'm personally comfortable with. Just a couple weeks ago, we were at an outdoor patio at a coffee shop, and there was a couple women there. It was clearly kind of a mom's meetup thing. They were probably good friends. And between these 3 or 4 women, there was probably almost 10 kids. And they were literally playing tag on this patio, which, if I didn't have my dog, I'd probably just put my headphones in and turn up my music. Whatever. They're little kids, 4 or 5 years old. It's not a big deal. But Barley was starting to get pretty amped about them, basically. You know, his pupils were dilated, his ears were forward, he was standing up, he was watching them go, and they were running really, really close to him and even circling behind my chair. I really hate confrontation, but I did get up and I did ask those moms, if they could ask their kids to at least play tag on the other side of the patio, and maybe if the kids want to play tag, maybe they should go to a playground, not the coffee shop. And the moms were really great about it. But so that's the other thing, kind of rule number 2, I guess, would be an advocate for your dog. So if someone or something is happening that, it's relatively reasonable to ask someone to stop, and that would make your dog's life better, do it. Even just yesterday, actually, there was a little kid. Seems like it's always kids, isn't it? Barley loves kids, but there was a little kid at this coffee shop, and this kid was throwing pebbles. Barley loves fetch, so he was watching this kid, and this kid was picking up things and throwing them, and Barley was like, oh my god, this is my favorite game. But Barley was on a leash, and the kid was not throwing pebbles for Barley, or even towards Barley. And I did end up having to get up, because Barley actually started barking at the kid. And that is a situation where I kind of had a choice. I could be like, all right, my dog's barking, we're causing a disturbance, we need to go home. That would have been totally valid, and I considered doing that. But I also kind of looked at the situation, and the mom was on her phone. I don't think she knew her kid was throwing rocks. He was kind of throwing rocks towards me and my dog. And I figured it was appropriate to at least ask the mom to ask her kid, who's probably maybe 2, to stop throwing rocks. And she did, and they, she finished her coffee and they left, and it was no big deal. So, I could have just given up and left, but it actually paid off in that case to ask. And it's going to depend. I mean, obviously, if a group of 20 people comes in to the coffee shop and they're sitting down, and not really doing anything, but their presence is still stressing your dog out, it's probably not appropriate to ask them to leave. So there are going to be times where it is your job to leave. All right. I just blabbed for God knows how long straight. I'm going to take a quick moment to pull up Karen Overall's relaxation protocol, and we're going to demo day 1 and then day 15 so you guys can kind of see where that protocol takes you. Keep in mind, Barley is already an absolute champion at this. He is currently asleep under my chair because we've done so much of it, but you guys will get to see kind of what it is. Last tip before we get started is obviously bring water. But also I tie my dog to my chair, rather than to the table, which is really great if, something's going on and my dog actually does put some tension on the leash. It's attached to me, not where my laptop and my drink are. So, let me pull up that relaxation protocol and we will do a demo. So I'm going to journeydogtraining.com/ Karen Overall's relaxation protocol with the little dashes in between each one. If you guys want to go ahead and check that out. Again, I do not own this protocol, but you can see it on my website. And if you just Google Karen Overall's relaxation protocol, it'll still come up. So either way, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the little link that says Karen Overall's relaxation protocol, and that opens the PDF. We scroll. There's a whole bunch of great information in here from Dr. Overall. I already know how to do this, so I'm not going to read that. All right, day 1, dog's task. So we're going to rotate you guys, and I'm going to set you guys up so that you can see Barley and hopefully me as well. I might do a weird thing where I'm going to sit with Barley. All right, so day 1, dog's task is down for 5 seconds. Barley has already been down for 5 seconds. Give him a treat. Down for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I like to feed on the mat, putting the treat right on the mat. That keeps the dog down. Down while I take one step back and return. So here goes my head. Sorry, guys. Good. Down while I take 2 steps back and return. Down for 10 seconds. So the nice thing about this protocol is it kind of bounces around. So down for 5 seconds. Your dog did well with that. Let's go up to 10. Let's get up and move. And then we're going to make it easier again and go back down to 10 seconds so that you're not progressively getting harder and harder and harder. That's the great thing about actually following this protocol, because otherwise we kind of tend to make it too hard too quickly. 10 seconds, 1 step, and then I'm going to stand up and take 1 step to the right and return. Treat. Let's see. Oh, and 1 step to the left. So what this part is doing is it's getting your dog used to the idea of movement. Then we're back to down for 10 seconds. And we're going to skip ahead a little bit here, guys, because I don't want to keep you guys here forever. So now I'm going to take 2 steps back and return, and then 2 steps to the right and return. Yeah, we'll go ahead a little bit more just to kind of give you guys a good idea of it, but this starts kind of repeating so that your dog doesn't just do each skill only once. So, 1, 2. Down. So as long as Barley stays on the mat, I'm going to keep feeding him. If he gets up, then I pick up the mat and we take a 30-second break, and then we start over at the beginning. If your dog is getting up consistently over and over and over again on the same thing, go ahead and just practice that a couple times. If you guys just keep starting over and over, especially if your dog is getting up at like the very last one, you know, you'll be there forever. So, and don't try this too many times in a row on the same day, because it's long and it's hard. Your dog will get better at it. But even you guys are seeing now, this is day 1. Barley and I have done this probably 100 times and he's still getting up a little bit. So, and now we are going to clap our hands softly once. Again, we're just getting our dog used to the idea of all this movement and stuff. Alright, so that's kind of the general gist of what you cover in day 1. There's a little bit of counting out loud, a little bit more movement. Sorry, I'm trying not to cut off my dog's head in the screen. There you go. Now you can see him too. That's the general gist of day 1. Now let's scroll all the way down to day 15 and kind of see what it looks like, huh? And again, the idea here, you guys, is that you will do this first at home, then in a slightly harder situation, and then finally you can try it in a situation similar to a coffee shop or work. Your dog will get better and better at it. You guys can see Barley is just putting his head down and just is like, this game is boring. I might as well get comfortable. So we start with down for 10 seconds. We've already done that. And then down for 5 seconds. And then the next thing is he has to stay down for 15 seconds while I clap my hands and hum at the same time. I don't even know if I can do that. Well, I don't have to. Yeah, it's easier than that. So that was at least 15 seconds. So 15 seconds while I clap and hum. Close enough to 15 seconds. And the weirder you are during this, the easier it is for your dog to adjust to people. And the nice thing is, if you take this to a new place like a park, there are going to be people going by, but they're probably going to be farther away. I've also found that if you are doing weird stuff like this, and you like have your phone out to look at the protocol, most people don't really try to go bother you. So it's really nice at first because it keeps a little bit of a bubble. People might eventually stop and ask you what you're doing, and then you can point them to me. I would love that. I usually just gave them my business card and told them I was a trainer. But most people are pretty good about keeping their distance while you're doing this because it's pretty obvious you're doing something a little weird. Alright, so now down while I disappear from view, knock, say hello, talk for 10 seconds, and then return. So I'm going to go ahead and go around this corner and try this. So this is really directed at getting dogs to be calm when people are coming in. into the house. Just a treat because he's been there for a while. But all of this still applies, and the nice thing is your dog does kind of generalize the concept. So even though at the coffee shop this is not going to happen, your dog generalizes the concept of exciting things happen, and I just stay put. So here I go. I'm going to disappear from view, knock, say hello, talk for 10 seconds, and come back. Okay, wait. Hello? Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? I don't know, not much. Good boy. So you guys probably couldn't hear that because I have a directional microphone. Oh, that's exciting.
Big dog.
Hi.
Hi.
Here,
You guys
Barley.
knocking?
What's that?
You guys knock? Or was that the dog?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I knocked on the side of your building.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
I'm doing some training. I didn't realize you guys were home.
No worries, no worries.
Whoops. All right, Barley, come on. Hey. Hey, down. Oh, I know. I don't think we can go a full month of Training Tuesday without Barley barking at something, huh? Alright, we're just gonna keep feeding. So then going on through 15, down for 20 seconds while I hum, down while I disappear from view, say hello, invite the imaginary person in, wait 5 seconds and return. There's a bunch of ringing doorbells and such. So as you guys are getting ready for coffee shops, bars, and co-working spaces, or just work, I guess, and you're starting to take this on the road more, you guys can improvise, and as you get comfortable with this, you can do something that's kind of similar difficulty, but a bit more relevant. So that might be having someone else come and sit near you. It might just be going to a coffee shop, sitting down with your dog on the mat, and waiting for something that's semi-interesting to happen, and giving your dog a treat, and feeding every 10 seconds or so, otherwise in between. So you guys could go to a coffee shop, lie down, have your dog lie down, you'll stay sitting, on the patio, and every time someone new comes by, give your dog a treat. Reward if he stays there, etc. So you guys don't have to totally follow this exact protocol everywhere, because obviously there are some parts of it, like ringing a doorbell, that you're not going to do while you're at a coffee shop. So that is my secret weapon for teaching my dog to hang out. And the big thing here, I'm going to make myself comfortable and sit on this. The big thing here, you guys, is this is different from a downstay. So there is such thing as, basically teaching your dog to sit down and stay for multiple minutes at a time while, in obedience or competitive obedience or something. That is different from this. I do not want you guys to work on that. This is teaching your dog to stay down and stay relaxed in increasingly distracting environments. And your dog ideally is going to be rolling over onto one hip, lowering his head, overall just getting more and more relaxed. So a downstay, your dog is supposed to stay there, he's not supposed to move, he's not supposed to roll over, he's not supposed to get relaxed. It's really vigilant and it's not very comfortable. I don't want your dogs to be doing that while you're at the coffee shop. You probably don't either, especially if you're going to be there for hours. So this is not a downstay, this is relaxation. And that's actually when I'm at the coffee shops, if Barley wants to sit up or stand up or stretch, turn around, all that stuff, that is all totally fine. And I don't want to too heavily enforce him staying down because I want him to be comfortable. I'm getting up, I'm stretching, I'm walking around, I'm going to the bathroom. I want him to feel comfortable doing this, maybe not the bathroom bit, but I want him to feel comfortable with that as well. And again, that's why we do this relaxation protocol rather than working on like an intense downstay sort of practice. Oh, and we do have a question. Thank you, Andrea. The best way to quantify relaxation during the protocol. So yeah, you generally will start with your dog staying on the mat because that's nice and discreet for you guys. And then as I go forward, I like to, if I notice that my dog is yawning or putting his head down, or especially things that are easier for you guys to notice, like if your dog lies down and he's totally square, right? And then he rolls over onto one hip, like, oh, Barley's sitting. Never mind. Down. So how he's kind of rolled onto that one hip, that is a slightly more comfortable and relaxed position for him. But there are other things you guys can look for. So if you notice that your dog's pupils are really dilated, or his ears are really far back or really far forward, all of those things kind of let us know that your dog is not really relaxed, which isn't a bad thing. I would continue rewarding through that. And if you guys follow this protocol right, you guys should see your dog actually starting to relax more and more as you go forward. But if you guys are getting there, getting towards the end and you're noticing that your dog's pupils are dilated, he's panting even though it's not hot. Like Barley has a nice relaxed pant right now. But if the sides of his mouth are pulled back in a grimace, or he's yawning, scratching, all of those things, that kind of let us know that he's not relaxed. So it's kind of easier to look at the things that let us know they're not relaxed than it is to kind of quantify relaxation. Obviously, if your dog is sleeping, he's probably pretty relaxed, so I always kind of silently cheer when Barley falls asleep when I'm at coffee shop. Let's see, do we repeat day 1 until the dog isn't showing signs of stress? I think if the dog is succeeding, I would keep moving forward, but that might mean that after we're done, we keep practicing. What I actually did at one point was I found you can go, if you just Google like a random interval timer, I was able to find one that basically set off a random beep at me every so often, and I would put the dog on the mat and I started working, and that actually helps a little bit because I'm not paying attention to him, and every time it beeped I gave him a treat. That helped a little bit too. And if you want, what you can start doing is, so do day 1 and then put the mat out, take it down or put it down, and wait until you see any signs of relaxation, which you might have to catch some really, really small signs of it, because if you've got an excited dog and you wait too long, you might get some barking, spinning, all sorts of other kind of frustration type behaviors. If you keep that rate of reinforcement relatively high, so we're giving lots of treats, and you can even reward every time your dog blinks or something like that, and we can keep kind of shaping that relaxation. I really like to look for the lowered heads, the rolled hips, but blinking is another really nice one. You can even look to see if, the whiskers are pointed forward and then they relax for a second, reward that. So you can really get really, really nitty gritty about it, especially the better you are at reading dog body language, but it gets tough. Generally, I find that dogs get more relaxed as you go on because I kind of start getting that this is the game. For dogs that do a lot of training or are just really excitable, especially at first with this game, they really are like, okay, great, and now do we spin, or do we jump through a hoop, or like, they're still waiting for like the next thing, the next exciting thing, more. And as they start learning that, like, oh, when the mat comes out, we just lie here, they generally get more and more relaxed as they get better and better at the game. All right, again, this is Kayla from Journey Dog Training. If you guys need any help with your pets, go ahead and shoot me an email, kayla@journeydogtraining.com. And if you guys want to check out my blogs, they are at journeydogtraining.com, and I write about all sorts of stuff all the time. There's a blog that comes out every Thursday